Hi YouTube, it's Hoyt. I'm going to be sharing a dream with you guys that I had recently. Now, I made a video about this not that long ago, but I'm also remaking this video because I'm going to try to make it shorter. I'm going to try to make it better. So that is why I'm resharing this video. So yeah, I'm going to get into it. So I had this dream recently where I was seeing the Russian and Chinese military training together, and I just saw like kind of like the ocean, and there was off in the distance on the shore there was like targets set up, and I was like, what am I looking at here? And all of a sudden there was all these waves of water, and I saw Russian and Chinese amphibious vehicles come out of the water, and they were shooting tracer rounds at these targets. They were training for World War III, and this training that I saw was massive. There was tons of soldiers, tons of vehicles. It was this huge like thing in this dream. I was like, wow, that's actually like really impressive what I saw. Now in this dream, the next scene, the scene cut to the next one, and I saw on the news they were talking about Putin, and it was the Western media talking about Putin. And they were lying about Putin. Everything they were saying was a lie. And it was quite the opposite. What they were saying was quite the opposite of what is actually true. And they were lying about everything. Everything that you see on the news is fake. And that's why I don't watch the news, because it is all fake. So the next scene after that, I actually saw Vladimir Putin standing on a battleship, a huge battleship. And there was many battleships in this dream, and I was walking out to the battleship, and I saw Putin at the very front of the battleship, and like off in the background was the Chinese president Xi Jinping, and there was tons of Chinese and Russian soldiers on the ship, and it was almost like Putin was being recorded. Like, I don't know if I was holding the camera. It was like Putin was on the news, and I was like about to walk onto the news, like I was about to walk onto TV of him being on the news. You get what I mean? I can't remember if I had the camera or if someone else had the camera or what, but I was like about to walk onto the news on the battleship, and Putin was there, and the Chinese president was there, and there was tons of soldiers there behind them, and there was news reporters. They were like, oh, Russia and China are paper tigers. Oh, you guys are this, you guys are that. You guys are evil. You guys are bad. You can't defeat the United States. You can't defeat the West and NATO. And Putin was just shaking his head and laughing. And the Chinese president, Xi Jinping, was shaking his head and laughing. All the soldiers were shaking their head and laughing, and Putin was looking at the camera, and he was like, oh man, you guys have no idea what is coming to you. You guys have no idea what you're about to face. And then the dream ended, and I was like, wow, that was pretty interesting, and it's about what I would expect, because the news is pretty fake. So that was the first dream I had. I actually had a second dream. I remember this now. In my last video, so these two dreams I had the dream about what I just told you about Putin, the Western media, Chinese president Xi Jinping, but I had a second dream that was interlinked with the first dream, and I had the second dream right after the first dream, like a night later. So the second dream that I had, it has to do with the first dream. It's like a part two to the first dream. So I had this dream where I saw Russia and China invade America, and there was tons of Chinese and Russian soldiers invading America, and there was U.S. Marines fighting off the invasion force. They were coming from the air, the sea, and they were going onto the land, and it must have been here on the West Coast where I am, and there was so many Chinese and Russian soldiers in the stream that it was like impossible to fight them off. There's too many of them. We were being overrun. And in this dream, I saw this huge battle going on, and there was just tons of. So I saw Russian. They're called. I think they're called Zuber class landing craft (LCACs), and they were coming onto the beach or the shore or whatever I was seeing, and they were stopping. They're like these. Yeah, it's like a landing craft, and they have these huge like fans or whatever, and they were just humongous. They were huge, and they came up on the shore or whatever. There's tons of them, and there's battleships, and the battleships were shooting at the land where we were as Americans, and all these infantry fighting vehicles come out. It's not exactly a main battle tank, but it has tracks. It has a 30 millimeter gun, so the barrel of the gun is it's about like that big around. It looks skinny compared to a main battle tank. A main battle tank, the gun is like 120 millimeters. So they were coming at us, and there was APCs and big trucks, and there's just this huge battle. And I saw the next scene cut where I was walking through the war zone. Everything was destroyed. Russia and China destroyed everything. These soldiers like annihilated everything. What I saw was crazy. There was like no buildings and rubble left. It was just mud and dirt and smoke and dead bodies. Oh, it was so crazy. And in the dream, I was walking through these craters, and there was this big Chinese military truck and infantry fighting vehicles and APCs all around. And I was hiding behind a Chinese military truck. It was huge. And I was standing in a crater, and there was like a Chinese military truck to the right of me, like in front of me. And I saw a trench dugout where there was US Marines, and almost all of them were dead. And there was like a machine gun position, and there was just blood everywhere, and the soldiers were dead. And there was about like 3 to 5 guys still alive. And I saw tons of Chinese and Russian soldiers coming towards us with like lasers and stuff like pointing at us. And that's another thing. These soldiers had the same type of modern equipment and technology that we have. Like everything was modern. They have the same capabilities as us. And combined, they are more powerful than the United States. If you didn't know that. But yeah, they were coming at us in the dream, and they were telling the Americans to get on the ground, and everybody put their hands on the back of their head like this, and they were getting on their knees. And when all the Marines got on their knees, they actually kicked us Americans on the ground, and they like shoved us into the mud and dirt, and then they were getting ready to execute everybody. And I was watching this, and I in the dream, I put my hand in my head, and I was like, no, oh my gosh. And yeah, they were about to kill them. And then I woke up. And when I woke up from the dream, I was like, wow, they literally destroyed everything. There were so many of them. It was insane. It was crazy. Now, that's another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, is that if you do the math, there is 4.1 million active duty personnel in the Russian and Chinese military. That's just active duty. 4.1 million. If you add the reserves and everybody else, it's like millions more than 4.1 million people. Compared to the United States, the entire size of the United States, like in its totality, is like 2.9 million people. We'll call it like about 3 million people. So if Russia and China pull up to the United States to fight us, there is 2.9 million soldiers versus 4.1 to who knows, like 6 to 7 million soldiers. Like I couldn't even imagine fighting something like that. In my dreams, when I see them invade, I've had many dreams of Russia and China invading this country. It is crazy. There's so many of them. We are not able to defeat them if they join forces and fight us. It's not possible. Just the numbers alone speak for themselves. Now, I've had dreams where the Russian military and the Chinese military, when they come here, they're going to have the same technology and weapon technology as us. Like what's happening in Ukraine, people are like, oh, the Russian soldiers don't even have flashlights on their guns, or optics like red dots, or lasers, or plate carriers, or this and that. In my dreams, when I see them come here, they have all of that. They have night vision. They have advanced missiles. Russia's missile systems are more advanced than ours. The Chinese military, they have very advanced technology too. And China's population is like 1.4 billion people. Nobody can outproduce China. They make so many vehicles. We've been surpassed by Russia and China in many sectors in our military for years now. Like they've already surpassed us, and they're gonna join forces and fight us, and they're gonna destroy us. I've dreamt this many times. It's over. And the reason why everybody goes so hard against Russia and Putin is because Putin, he didn't allow his country to be a part of the central banking system. And there's only like Russia's only one in like 7 countries in the world that are not a part of the central banking system. And that's why the Western countries hate Russia. And on the news and on the media, they portray Russia as a bad country, that they're bad people, that their military are the evil guys, the bad guys. Even in video games and movies and everything, the Russians are always the bad guys. But it's actually not reality. In reality, America and the West, NATO, all the NATO countries, we are the bad guys, but specifically America is like the root of all the evil. And our nation is not exactly in good standings with God. Like we've started so many wars and killed so many people in this world. Like our government, they take whatever they want in this world, and they use the U.S. military to do it. They use the most powerful military in the world to get whatever they want. And God sees that. And God's like, one day God's going to be like, enough. And Russia and China are going to come here and they're going to destroy everything. I completely understand it. If you actually do some research and you go down the rabbit hole of everything that the United States does, you'll see it for what it is, that the United States does evil things in this world. The West, it's just it's a shit show is what it is. It's a shit show, and it's going to come to an end. And I even saw a video with Putin on Facebook. I have several videos saved where he was talking about the West and how we are stuffing our stomachs with human flesh and filling our pockets with money. And he said the vampire ball is coming to an end soon. And I was like, that's pretty much exactly like my dreams lately. And yeah, people think that Putin is bluffing, and that we can't be defeated because we're American and we have the most powerful military in the world. But with Russia and China, with Russia's and China's military combined, they're way more powerful than the United States by a long shot. It's not even comparable. And what's even more scary is I've had dreams where China was invading, and there was kids sent here to fight us, marching up a beach. I think it was like in Florida or something. And so not only, like what I was saying earlier, that size of the Chinese military is huge, but those numbers are going to go up drastically because they're going to send like teenagers to fight us. So we're just going to be outnumbered like crazy, soldier wise. But I want to say another thing. The United States has the most armed civilian population in the world. We have 100 million plus armed civilians in this country. That's a huge number. So when these militaries come here, it's going to be hard for them to fight us, or a bit annoying for any soldiers that land here, because every house that they try to kick in, there's going to be an American waiting in the house ready to shoot them. So it's not going to be like America kicking doors in Iraq and the civilians putting their hands up and just submitting to the soldiers. It's not going to be like that. Russia and Chinese soldiers kicking doors in America, people are going to be shooting back. But I've dreamt that this country is going to be hit with an EMP attack. So we're not going to have our power grid and electronics like we do now. Now I have dreamt of like flashlights, like I've dreamt of soldiers, Russian soldiers chasing me and their flashlights worked. And I dreamt I was shooting after the EMP went out during the invasion, and lasers on guns work, like IR lasers, like PEC-15s and D-balls, and like IR laser boxes work. So you're gonna be able to use flashlights and stuff. I've dreamt this. So our power grid is gonna be gone. And another thing is I've dreamt that the United States is going to be fogged out with like poison. Now I'm not the first one that dreamt this. My friend Richard, you guys know him on YouTube as Ice Up in California, he dreamt that the United States is gonna get fogged or like chemtrailed with a modified herpes virus. And he said in his dream that anybody that had the shingles virus is going to be immune to this modified herpes virus. And so what's gonna happen, I've dreamt of these huge planes flying over America, like in New York. He did too, where they were flying over and they shot out this these clouds of the modified herpes virus, and it came down and it looked white in my dream in New York, and it was getting on people's skin and it wasn't coming off, this white stuff. It kind of looked like flour, like wet flour almost, or it was like a misty looking like flour, you know? And people were screaming. They were like, oh my gosh, it won't come off. And people were puking up blood and they were sick. People were getting sick, but anyone with the shingles virus was just, they could walk right through it and they were fine. Now, when that happens, people are gonna be too weak to fight. People have guns here, but the whole point is that Russia is gonna try to weaken the civilian population and the military, just the entire country, to soften up all the resistance. So when they come in here, they could just clean everything up and just muscle down. And that's what's gonna happen. But that can't happen if a second American Civil War doesn't happen. And that's gonna happen too. So first, the Civil War is gonna happen. The strongest Americans are gonna kill each other off. Then Russia and China are gonna EMP the United States, hit us with that modified herpes virus and spray us all and make us sick. It's gonna come from the air. People are gonna breathe it in. There's gonna be almost no escape. I dreamt in my dreams that I was putting masks on and like getting in a building and putting hoodies on to try to get away from that stuff coming down. But there's basically gonna be no escape. And then after that, they're gonna nuke us and they're gonna send in ground forces and they're just gonna clean everything up. And whoever's left at that point is very lucky, but they're gonna have to fight soldiers. And even though we have 100 million armed civilians, the soldiers have military technology and tanks and jets and all this stuff. And we're inevitably gonna lose. America's gonna lose World War III. We are gonna be destroyed. And I've also dreamt when I'm getting goosebumps like crazy. Wow, look at that. When I lived in Missouri, I dreamt that there was, I was walking outside with my dad, and there was this big river. On one side of the river, everything looked country-like. There's American flags and Americans working and American vehicles, and then on the other side of this river, there was Russian swirly top buildings, tons of Russian architecture. And there was these Russian apartment buildings. I don't know how do you pronounce it, but it's spelled like it's spelled K-R-U-S-H-O-V-K-A. I don't know if I spelled that right. I don't even know how you pronounce that word. But there was those type of like apartment buildings or whatever. And in my dream, I was like a drone camera and I was flying over these buildings. And then in the next scene, I was walking by these buildings, and I was looking at these buildings, and I was thinking in my mind, in my dream, I was thinking, these are Russian buildings. The Russians took over the entire United States. They invaded and they won and they took over this entire place. And then I woke up from that dream, and I also had many dreams in Missouri where the house that I used to live at, where my family used to live at, I was in Kabul, Missouri in my dream, and everything was overgrown and like dingy, and it was nighttime and it was scary, and I could hear, oh, I'm getting goosebumps again. I could hear people talking in my dream, and I was walking at nighttime. There was moonlight. It was a full moon shining down on me. And I was walking through my town, and I was like, where am I? Am I in the woods? I got to get out of here. I got to get to town. But I was in town, and everything was overgrown trees, overgrown grass. It looked like people, like something happened. And I was walking through these trees and this brush, and I realized I was standing on the street of my town, in my neighborhood where I live. And then I was walking through this brush and these trees, and I saw my house, and I was like, oh, that's my house. But I could hear people, and I was hiding in the dream. I was scared, and I felt like something was wrong in the dream, and I could hear people talking in my dream. It was a bunch of Russian women. It was Russian that I was hearing, people talking in Russian in Kabul, Missouri. And I was like, where is everybody? Where's my family? Where's the Americans? Where'd everybody go? And all I heard was Russian people talking. It was a bunch of women. There was men too. And I was like hiding. I was like hiding, like in all this brush and in this tree line. And I came out of the tree line, and I saw my house, and I was like, oh, that's my house. And as I was walking up to my house, the moonlight was really like directly on my house in the dream. And I went to open the door, and I turned around, and I saw this huge grizzly bear. And it looked at me, and it like roared basically. And it was charging at me, and I was terrified in the dream. My heart was beating really hard. And I ran my house, and I locked the door at just the right time. And the bear reached out its paw and clawed at the door and scratched it, and I barely made it inside. That bear represented Russia. Russia invaded. And those people that were living in my town were Russians that got to live here because they invaded and they took over. So they were living here. And America was no more. There was no more. It was gone. Everything was gone. And I also saw in this dream that there was Russian houses built in my town. In my street, there was Russian houses, like little cabin-looking houses, wooden cabin-looking houses. And they were small, built in my town in Kabul, Missouri. That's where I used to live. And when I dreamt that when I was like 14 or 15, I was like, what was that? And I even told my dad about it. I was like, I just had a dream, like there was like Russian people in our town, and I heard them talking. I was hiding, and I was scared, and there was no Americans, and a bear tried to attack me, and now I know what it means. And Russia's gonna attack, and they're gonna destroy everything, and it's gonna be scary. It really is. But yeah, basically, so God is going to use Putin to execute God's judgment, and Russia is going to destroy the West, and China's going to be alongside them, and everything is going to come to an end in this country and in Western society. And World War III is going to be the worst war ever. I heard a voice say that in my dream before, in one of my dreams. So yeah, basically do with this information what you must, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. So goodbye. God bless you guys.